Looks like Michelle's and David are
Oh, here
waiting
she
to
is.
be.
Okay. Let's see. There you go. Okay.
My format is a little different.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, sorry about that. I thought
I'm always like, am I doing something wrong? It's just on me after like nearly a year of doing this. I'm still like, am I doing it right?
Well, Michelle, you probably weren't here. Linda used to drive the meetings for us, but we're so short staffed now. I'm having to drive as well. So I'm very new at this. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm glad you're driving because I would not be able to drive this meeting.
No drinking while driving.
That's right.
I think it's at 4:30, so I'm going to get started if that's okay, David.
Yes, but let me check to see if David Boatman's here yet. I think he's the only one speaking for the first one.
Boatwright, you mean?
I'm sorry, Boatwright, yes.
Oh,
there he
just
is.
signed in.
He is
Yeah.
here.
I'm going to get started with the administrative items. Do you need to, are we recording?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, so we will get started then. Good evening, afternoon, whatever time it is. Welcome to the February 16th, 2021 meeting of the City of Charleston's Design Review Board. My name is Erica Chase, the board's chairperson. The members of the board with us tonight are Jeff Johnson, Michelle Smith, Aaron Stevens, Kristen Krause, and Andy Smith. Members of city staff present are David Meeks, Velvet Simmons, and do we have Andrea as present as well, David?
I think so. She was supposed to join.
Durungs.
Yes, she is. With
And Tori Parrish as well.
Yes. Sorry. I gotta do something about this.
Okay. We do not have any items that have been deferred, and we do not have any recusals for tonight's meeting. The order of the meeting will be as follows. David will give a project overview for any new projects. Then the applicant and the team will have 10 minutes for the project presentation. We are giving a little bit of flexibility with the Zoom meetings. So if you need a few minutes extra, that's fine. But if you need time well beyond 10 minutes, please let us know at the start of your presentation. All presenters should clearly state their names for the record. And then we will open up the meeting for board questions. And then we will have a 10-minute time for public comments. However, we do not have any members of the public registered tonight, nor did we receive any emails or letters from the public for any of the items tonight. David will then give city staff recommendations, and then the applicant may respond or clarify to David's staff comments or any public comments. Then we will enter into board discussion and a motion and vote. During the discussion period, the applicant may only clarify inaccurate information when you are recognized by myself or one of the other board members. If everyone could please silence all cell phones and any other devices that may make noise at this time. And I do want to remind everyone, I guess we don't have any public comments, but that our board only has purview over site design and architecture, and we do not have authority over zoning issues such as land use, building density, flooding, or traffic. So David, if you could go to the virtual meeting protocol. And again, I'm going to skip over all of the items that are referencing public comment since we do not have any. But David will be controlling the PowerPoint presentation, which includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants will need to ask David to advance to the next slide during your presentation. Applicant, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. The video and microphone have been disabled for all attendees. Attendees will only be able to be given the capabilities to speak when they are called on during the public comment. Chat and Q&A functions have been disabled for everyone. Staff will issue meeting results, including staff comments and board motion to the applicant following the meeting. Results will also be posted on the city website, which is listed on David's screen. And then there is an additional email and website listed for additional information. And I do want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. So with that, we will get started with item number 1739, Maybank Highway, requesting approval for the painting of 2 mural walls at the James Island Center.
Thank you, Erica. Just a little introduction. This is the James Island Center, location at the corner of Volley and Maybank Highway. And there's 2 murals in questions. You can see the first mural A is proposed for the end of the, excuse me, the end of the building facing Maybank Highway. And then mural B is a less visible. It's this location. And I'm also going to be showing you all a sign, which is not part of this package, but I did want to show it to you because it's also somewhat of a mural, although it's signage, so it needs to be reviewed separately by staff. But I just wanted to show it to you all because it's kind of in the same theme. So maybe you could comment on it, but that will be reviewed separately. It's not part of the motion. So I'm going to run through these real quick before David starts talking about these. This is mural A. The location is proposed for this wall here. And then there's another view of it. So it is quite visible on Maybank Highway. And then this is a closer view. This is the mural, but I'm going to let David talk about this. I'm just running through and showing the locations first. This is the location for mural B. It is a little visible when you're driving on the approach road. Closer view, and then the actual location of it, and then the proposed mural. So backing up, David, are you available? David Boatwright?
He's muted right now, David. I don't know if you can unmute him or he needs to unmute himself.
My mouse is stuck.
Mute.
There we go.
Okay, should I start with video as well?
If you'd like, it's not necessary, but we'd like to see you. That'd be
Okay,
great.
I think it's better.
Hi there.
You see me now?
Yes.
We can, thank you.
You're free to start, just if you could tell us a little bit about.
Okay, well, I guess whenever someone contacts me about a mural and it's a specific place, I like to relate it to the place. I mean, I just think, you know, just to have a sort of random subject doesn't do anything. And so obviously this is for us locals. We know this is Wapu Cut, which is, you know, runs quite parallel to this wall. And additionally, it was sort of challenge of coming up with a composition for a long wall like that, and something that's fun to look at and just sort of works for the, you know, the long, you know, horizontal surface. So, you know, so I guess that idea of familiarity and grounding it in some local thing, it really drives everything. And even right down to the, you know, the local tugboats and people's sailboats and in this case, a dog on a motorboat. And the dog, it personalizes it even further. And a lot of times people suggest, well, can you put my sister in the mural, or can, you know, so on like that. And I usually kind of bat those ideas down, but because there's 3 murals here, I thought it was sort of like creating a mascot for the business or the location, and it was a way to tie these 3 separate murals together. And so just the suggestion from the owner, yeah, use my dog, which seemed like a good idea. So that's what I went with. And there's a little confusing element over here because there's a Maple Street Biscuit Company sign, which may or may not be there. I've had a hard time following up with my clients to find out if they want me to do that. But if that's the case, I will submit that to David separately. But just for this mural, that's really what you see, what you get, you know.
Should I move on to the second one?
Sure.
So here's the location and then the actual artwork.
Super cute.
The reason I did this idea was give it a musical theme because it. She said she was considering. I don't think it's a absolute it's going to happen, but there's this little courtyard space there, and she just thought it would be nice to have music events out there on occasion. Some live music and there's our dog again, and it's a pretty straightforward conception for me. Put some musical instruments and put the dog in to kind of tie it in with the other, the theme, the mascot, introduce the mascot. And I really like this idea of, personalizing, humanizing, breaking out of a little bit of a generic pattern with all these shopping centers. And I think it'll be enliven the space a little bit and it'd be good for business as well. So those are my two mural things. And we're going to look at the sign, which is related.
Sure, I'll just point out to the board, this proposed signage is not part of this package and we reviewed separately by staff. This faces Old Folly Road. But I didn't know if possibly the board wanted to comment on it since they're
this is not, again, it's not 100% complete. This we talked about, and it doesn't really show up here, but the cornice is a darker gray, and this used to fill the whole space, and reduced it down. It looks a little naked in there, and so we just thought it might bring the darker gray all the way around, sort of simplify the border. And but it's the landscape, it's the dog, it's a kind of a fun sign for a business like that. But again, I think that'll be something separate, and it wants to be finalized before I really submit this.
And just to let the board know, this sign is considered a sign, so that's why we had to pull it from the package and let David know that it needs to be submitted separately. He was showing that the sign in the full space, and we let him know that it can only be 2/3 of the space were occupied, so he did reduce that. But I'm going to go back to the first sign, and is that all you have, Dave?
Pardon?
Anything else to say?
No, not really. I mean, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. Perfect. So any questions for Mr. Boatwright?
I have a question on this. This is Jeff on the mural A, and I think it's just point of clarification. The sign that says Maple Street on the side, on the left-hand side of this mural, is that is not part of the proposed design?
Correct.
Right. It may be, but it's, again, because signs are considered separately from murals, I thought it was okay just to show that it may be there, but in any case, I don't think the mural would extend over the net.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Can I, just to clarify a little further, this exact sign is right around the corner. It's more of a 3D sign that's projected out a little bit. This one is being proposed by David to be painted. And so I did let him know that if that is the case, it would need to be submitted separately. It's not part of this.
Got it.
So I'm unclear, David. This is Michelle. Do you want that sign to be next to the mural?
Actually, it did kind of work out for me. At first, I had this the Wapu cut mural extending all the way to the corner. And just to make it work, I would have had to reduce the height of the bridge. And I just felt that would have lowered the impact a little bit. You know what I mean? And to elongate it, the bridge and everything else in that mural would become smaller. So when this idea came up of using that area, it sort of helped the mural out. And besides the tree there, and these trees may be trimmed, you know, I'm assuming they'll be pruned back a little bit, but I'm okay with it. To answer your question, yeah, because it sort of helps my composition on the mural part.
Okay. I was just, if there's a sign on the front of this business, facing more of the turn into the parking area, I just wasn't sure if I understand the need for the sign on the side as well.
Maybe not. And it's not a done deal. It's something we talked about. I plugged it in here and just sort of left it. And I haven't gotten back with the owner. They hadn't gotten back to me on it. So
right. I mean, related to this composition, I was wondering if the scope of your mural was kept to that upper band, or if you were able to consider the entire facade for your mural.
Yeah, but the architecture was a little bit of a problem, because that cornice, if that's the right term for it, along the bottom, protrudes out quite a bit.
Right, there's a band.
I just don't think it would be hard to override that with any image.
Are there any plans to paint at least the bottom portion a solid color?
Not that we've talked about. I think that's a pretty good idea. In terms of simplifying it, maybe that, again, the darker gray, bring that all, just to kind of simplify it. So it's 3 tones, you know.
Right, exactly, yeah. And then my next question was for David Meeks. David, aren't we only allowed signage on one facade? I mean, does our ordinance allow for the sign that's already present along with this one? I mean, I know we're not reviewing it, but just, I mean, for the purpose of reviewing the mural.
It's allowed if there's an entry door, which there is on the side.
So there's 2 entry doors?
Yeah, there's an entry door here and another one over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
We do not have any public comments. So David, if you could please give staff recommendations.
Sure. Staff does like the artwork, but questions the dog and musical instrument theme chosen. Also the sizes presented, and if these locations are appropriate for the murals. The city has a file on this mall that dates back to 2000. There have been many alterations, additions, and DRB has closely monitored the design alterations and color choices for this location. These murals would be a drastic change to the overall look of the mall. Mural A of the Wapu cut, it seems awfully large at 60 feet across. Staff recommends maybe that it's reduced in size. Number 2, mural B is less conspicuous, being out of view from the street, but still questions the dog and musical instrument theme. I have a little better understanding now that David's explained the potential for music in that courtyard. But without hearing that explanation, I just didn't understand the dog and musical instrument theme. I was wondering what it had to do with the James Island Center and the overall community. I just thought the subject matter seems a little out of place for mural B. And then number 3, the applicants presented James Island Center sign as part of this package, but was removed as this gets a separate staff review. Again, staff questions the dog theme and would like the board to comment on this sign as well. We are recommending deferral just until we can work out some of these issues.
Thanks, David. Mr. Boatright, did you have any items to respond or clarify to in David's comments?
Um, uh, I guess I guess I'm a little surprised, a little caught off guard because of the dog seems to me to sort of be such a iconic part of low country life and water life and outdoor life. And again, I'd say I just, try to tie any subject into, give it a site specific purpose. And I think there's a little humor in having the dog, but what's wrong with that? I just, and as to the size, it wouldn't be, I don't think it would have, it wouldn't, for me, I mean, of course I have my, artistic centric point of view, but to me, the project is better, the bigger it can be. And it'll just read, it's a drive-by. And so it needs to be bold enough that you can sort of appreciate it on the fly. I think architecturally speaking, the building is, very generic, and I think this is a way to improve the look of the business. Or that's not quite the right word, but the center. Anyway, you know what I mean. So I maybe that's just a matter of personal taste about the dog. I don't see it as being offensive or objectionable in any way, and I think it lends a little warmth, a little humor, a little familiarity to the idea. So,
Thank you. We are now in board discussion and a motion.
Well, this is Jeff. I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of right things, David, that the mural does. It makes a building come to life. I think that's great, and I think there's plenty of opportunity here. And I like the subject matter. I particularly like the mural A integration of the dog because it's subtle. It's a character in the overall theme. I guess mural B, the dog gets a little bit more dominant, but it's in a less, I think, as David said, a very less conspicuous place. So can it be a little bit different? I think it probably can. I wonder, you said some things that are just, I kind of struggle with. I love the idea that there's an overarching theme here that you want to kind of recharacterize this center. I think that's great. I wonder if it's not bold enough, just these two locations and a sign. There's a lot of signage on this center, and you're competing with it. And I don't know exactly how to respond or provide direction to it, but is this really going to be enough to change the character of the center? I don't, what I'm seeing right now, I don't think so. Will it enhance? Yes. Will it take over? No. But getting specific about direction, like I look at mural A, and I think we've all kind of struggled with the Maple Street biscuit thing off to the left, which is an important signage for the user of this particular tenant space. But to me, it kind of muddies up the concept of the mural. And for me, I'd like to see the mural go full bleed corner to corner. And I think that's more of my struggle with all of three of these things proposed. It just seem more like stickers on the building, and your other works, I think, David, are really good and really sensitive, and they take a good drawing and they scale it in proportion to the building on which it sits. I mean, you're really good at that. And this one's tough. Because you're right, the proportions are weird. It's this kind of unusual thing, and there's a lot of strange architectural things going on. The horizontal banding, the vertical thing, it's tough. I think the idea is there is the staff comments were alluding to, but I wonder if it's just taking another layer of what's on the building and making it more integrated to the architecture that's there. Like a mural A here on the far left-hand side, the Maple Street biscuit is up there, and there's just a line between what's dark gray and the picture. It seems to me if we're going to integrate the Maple Street biscuit sign, it ought to be like part of this mural. The mural is 95% of this space, and yet we're dedicating 5% for Maple Street. Can the two be more integrated if they must happen on this elevation? To me, that's the thing that I think just needs more developing is making these murals not look so applied. And if they are applied, then embrace it. But right now it's kind of in between to me. I like this subject matter. I think this is, you're right, this is the heart of where we are here. As for the trees, I think your mind kind of fills in the gaps behind the trees. I think you know that. I wouldn't let those trees get in the way of a good graphic. I do agree that there needs to be some more integration between what happens above the band and below the band. On this particular mural, again, I think that contributes to it looking like a sticker. I'd like to see it more integrated with the architecture. So I think I've spoken enough, but those are my general thoughts.
No, I agree with everything you said, Jeff. Especially what I alluded to in my question about, any painting or anything, below the band. It needs a little bit more uniformity, I think, and agree with everything else you said. Maybe as we're kind of to go in here, maybe a cycle to the other mural, David. Unless I don't want to skip ahead. I'm just kind of looking at things. This one's a little bit more integrated because it kind of speaks to the stucco patterning of the building, but it's a little bit stark in that it's a much warmer color palette than the building. Not that that's bad. It's just I think that contributes to the idea of it not looking as integrated as some of your other work, David. I don't know. But again, is it permissible? Is it allowable? Kind of given where it is, probably. Agreed. I know we're not reviewing the sign, the third image, but I agree with you, Jeff, and it kind of has that sticker look. And I know it's a challenge of the sign ordinance, and David Meeks, I don't know if our board has the authority with it being a mural, to allow for something larger. I don't know, but I agree. I think it's awkward with the size of it right now.
Maybe it's just on this facade, the letters only, and the mural goes over on Barbaritos on the left-hand side. The mural is truly a more bolder thing. I don't know.
Any other discussion or emotion?
I think that, this is Michelle, I do feel like that's a valid question as to the composition of these murals and how they all work together. Like, I think that's a great point, Jeff, that you brought up about the dog laying down mural. I think that its location is fine, and I actually think that it will enhance that outdoor area and help activate it, like we rely on murals to do oftentimes. But I do wonder about the palette consistency of all of these, and right now they seem a little disparate because they each have their own issues they're contending with, right? Like mural A, I mean, I share the same concerns about the banding that exists with the architecture. I start to read that mural as wanting to be the whole facade, and that horizontal band, should that really be the bridge that's expressed? I start to associate, the piers of the bridge. I'm reading those with the change of color of those maybe they're supposed to be articulated pilasters. I don't know. I start to read those associations, and not that that's necessarily the direction that the mural should go in, but it does, you know, like the other board members were saying, want to be a little more integrated. And especially if that Maple Street sign has to be on that facade, make it part of the mural. It just drives me bananas seeing it. You know, that's another sticker on there, you know, that just detracts. It just detracts from your art.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's mural A. Mural B is a different attitude. It's a little, it captures the flavor, I feel like, of this area and the relaxed nature of this community and the love of the dogs. I have no problem with the dog also, no problem whatsoever with the character. I think it's playful, and I think you're right, it does speak to the low country lifestyle. And then the sign, while it's not technically it's not a mural, maybe it wants to be the mural. And I don't know how we get over that signage technicality, but if the approach is going to be similar to the other murals, then it's got to be a mural too, and it's got to speak the same language in my mind. And I think that it would help enhance the and give an identity to this shopping center. I mean, quite frankly, it's not going to change it, like Jeff was saying, but it would enhance it. It would enhance its identity, right? So this, you know, this sign, if it becomes a mural, is really acts as a sign for the center. The mural B is really an enhancement of that outdoor room for users of the shopping center. And mural A is truly, it's another identity brand, and it's really more, guys, for the street, you know, I mean, because it faces the street. It's more for the community and the passersby, and to remind folks that, hey, you know, this is a place that is thriving, and that can help you thrive. So I think that's why we enjoy these things, is urban elements that help support our and bolster the enjoyment of our community. That's all I had.
It's tough. We don't get the chance to really critique art that much, and that's kind of what this is. And it blends art and architecture. It's a pleasure to kind of to think about more cerebral things that get applied to a building. So I don't think anybody's opposed to the idea of these murals, and I think it speaks right to what you're talking about. It's going to create life and warmth to this center, which is excellent. So is there any more comments or thoughts?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion and for deferral, because I think we just need to kind of study these things to be a little bit more cohesive or integral, I think. And I'm going to try to break them up into mural A and mural B. And then the signage, I'm not going to make a motion on, but I think there's some good conversation for you to consider. So with that, I think I'll accept staff comments 1, 2, and 3. I think there was a little nuggets in each one of those. And then board comments relative to mural A. I would be so bold that we either eliminate the Maple Street signage or integrate it into the overall mural. So that's number 1. Number 2, mural A, integrate the mural better with architecture, perhaps with a color change of that building facade. I think that's it. I think it just needs to be better integrated with the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to say it to not make it look so applied or stickery, but you get the point. Mural B, I think I think what I was hearing was there was general consensus on its direction. The only thing I would suggest, and I think it's more of a consideration, is a more, I don't know how to say this correctly because I don't know if I firmly believe it, but a more consistent kind of color palette or something that just makes the murals more consistent as all 3 things. Again, I'm not sure I believe that, but just consider that. And then I'm not going to comment on the signage,
Jeff, could I ask one question in your motion?
please.
On when you were including staff comments questioned the direction of the murals. And I guess, are we questioning that as a board, or do you want to be more specific in what we're including in staff comments?
Let me read the staff comments.
Because I think what we're talking about in board discussion in your motion contradicts staff comments.
I agree with that. I think number 1 doesn't apply because he's talking about the size and scale. And number 2 also doesn't apply. That's talking about the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one that does apply is number 3, which is
Okay.
more about signage process.
And I
My
think
apologies.
not necessarily the dog theme, but just the sign itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion for deferral with staff comment 3. In board comments on mural A, number 1, eliminate or integrate the Maple Street biscuit signage into the mural. Number 2, integrate the mural better with the architecture on this facade. And then mural B, consider a more consistent color palette for more cohesiveness with the other murals.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second. Kristen
I have
Cross.
a second, and I will call roll now. Michelle,
Yay, in favor.
Aaron,
Yes, in favor.
Andy, you're on. There we go.
Yeah, yes, in favor.
Okay, and I'm also yes in favor. So thank you very much. And we will
Sorry, I'm
move on.
doing DRB at the same time.
Andy, hold on. There we go. Now we are moving on to item number 2,
Okay.
11.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Moving on to item number 2, 1176, 1180 Sam Rittenberg, requesting preliminary approval for the construction of a 2-story office building adjacent to an existing 3-story office building.
If you give me 1 second here, I'm letting these folks in. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. 1176 to 1180 Sam Rittenberg requested preliminary approval for the construction of a 2-story office building adjacent to an existing 3-story office building. Just to remind the board that they did get a deferral for conceptual approval on December 7th, and they're resubmitting asking for preliminary approval. And then here's the location of the property near the intersection of Old Town Road and Sam Rittenberg. A little closer view. This is the existing building, and then the proposed building is set right here. And here you can see the proposed location. Existing building. And this is where the proposed building will sit. And with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so last meeting in December, we were deferred largely because of landscape design issues that we had on site and some building issues. And first, I'd like to say that architects, engineers, landscape architects, they don't like deferral, but in this case, I think that the deferral period has allowed us to restudy this site and actually come back with a design that's more complete in nature and more cohesive with the existing building that is already out there at 1180 Sam Rittenberg. So as it would stand, I think that our design concept that we propose here today has largely kept intact the nature of the plan and the site planning configurations that we're having to contend with out there, but also create a building that's more complementary to the existing. So What I'd really like to do is to kind of go through the architecture really quick and then give a lot of time to the landscape architect, because we brought a new group on board. We have Remark Landscape Architecture on board with us. And I think Nate Dittman may be on the phone to
Yep,
discuss
I'm here.
concepts for this, to give you guys a better sense of how we're going to tie this whole property in as a cohesive site. In speaking with the owner, also the ultimate objective is to re-landscape the entire property and also to do some minor exterior improvements to the existing building that would then again bring it more in context with the new proposed buildings that you're seeing now. So David, let's just go through these slides real quick.
Okay. Is this a good one to start with? Or you want me to keep going?
So this is existing and proposed. Where we have from a floor plan standpoint has not changed. One of the comments, I think, Jeff, you made this comment specifically, was to study the existing building floor to floor and some of those relationships and how they could translate to the new building. Those floor to floor heights are roughly 11 feet floor to floor. And they don't really give us the ceiling height that we'd like to see in the building. So what we really focused on was kind of a complement of colors, a complement of exterior materiality, and complement of window stylization in terms of the ribbon effect that you have on the existing building, and how we're going to be pulling that into the new building with some SSG butt glazed curtain wall systems. Next slide. Just go past this, because I think that keep going, David. Keep going. I'm not going to rehash the civil. We talked about that last time. Go straight into the elevations. Well, let's go to the plan real quick. Back up one. So the plan we've already located right there. So we've located the HVAC fan coil units on the the north side of the building, which is completely shielded from the road. There's no viewpoint in the site in which you could see this. And also the electrical panels are on the left side, which is interior to the lot and behind the existing building, so you can't see them either. The fan coil units outside, we are proposing a screen wall around that, because in the dry detention pond in the rear, there is an effort to try and get some exterior deck space over that, and screening would work better for people in the rear of the property, kind of sitting out on the docks of their tenant spaces on the ground floor. But that hadn't been confirmed with the city yet as to whether they'll allow it, so it's not part of the submittal. All right, next, David. Let's keep going. Plans are the same, roof plan, elevations with material call outs. So the elevation on the top of detail 2 is the previous image with a corrugated metal siding, and detail 1 on the bottom is the current submittal with a EFIS system facade that would mimic the existing stucco facade on the existing building. We have a number of thicknesses for this to create a sense of depth on the facade. The darker shaded areas are roughly 1.5 inches projected, and the white areas are projected farther, just through the insulation thicknesses that will be applied to the wall. Next slide. In the rear, again, it's very similar. It's a change from the corrugated metal to the EFIS system. On the back side of the building, we are single sloping the roof to the rear with crickets, and we're picking those up through exterior leader heads and downspouts to discharge into the detention pond, since it's not visible to anybody or anywhere on site or from Sam Rittenberg. Next slide. Side elevations are very similar to one another. We've carried the ribbon window around the building. However, it's a taller window, ribbon window system than what's in the existing building, but but we wanted to maximize the amount of glazing in the building function. Next slide. Sections, we did not include the structural, but we have coordinated that with them. We know that our frame sizes work, our slopes work, our mechanical works. Next slide. We provided the details as necessary as per the preliminary submittal requirements. Next slide. I may run over, guys. Wall sections with details. Next slide. Next slide. Core plans and details. Next slide. Exciting stuff here. Next slide. More details. Next slide. So this is the view from Sam Rittenberg, and you can see with the mature trees that are on site, it's very difficult to see this building, and this is a little bit more reality-based rendering just to kind of get a sense of what you'd see. And also, you know, as you're driving by this at 30, 40 miles an hour, it would be even more blurred than what it is here. Next slide. You can start to see in this building the nature of the color pattern. The existing building has a very, very dark tinted glass, which is where we drew inspiration for the darker ethos paint scheme, not to be beholden to the dark tinted glazing. Since that's not something we wanted to go to, we decided to stay with the clear glazing and provide the darker elements elsewhere. Next slide. And the landscape that's actually rendered in these is fairly accurate to what the landscape architects have presented. This is again a view that's looking towards the interior corner of the existing building at our building. And again, you can see the linear nature of the building that we presented ties in well as more of a campus feel. Next slide. This is the rear of our building looking over the dry detention pond. Next slide. And then the rear looking back towards the existing building from the dry detention pond. Next slide. And this is parallel to the existing building in the rear, looking down the walkway towards the new building. And next slide. Okay, and then the structural that we do, I'd forgotten that we had included this in the package. I'm going to let Nate take some time to explain the landscape. If you want to go back to that, I think he's on the phone with us or the Zoom call with us.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, Nate.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Eric said, we wanted to have a cohesive plan, and we initially wanted to look at the entire site. We wanted to bring the plantings all the way out to the street. For this stage, we kept the scope close to the new building. I guess to start between the buildings, we just wanted to have a simple, clean palette, but kind of bring attention to the new building, but not hide it, have different textures. That kind of alley effect that you're seeing there, those are all Eagleston hollies. So kind of at the eye level and above, there's some screening with vegetation, but we didn't want to feel constriction on the lower half. Wanted to give it some space there. So in that area, it's mostly evergreen. There's a variety of textures, and the hollies kind of create an alley effect. Then in the back, we have this tough area because it's a dry pond, so it's going to be really wet. It's going to be really dry at times, and then it's also largely shady. So we have a variety of species there that are tough, that are evergreen, that do not take much maintenance. And then finally, we have to have our buffer plantings in the back, but we did place quite a few beyond the requisite amount of shrubs, just some flowering, interest different times of the year. All the trees in that canopy will have to be, not all of them, but they'll need to be trimmed a little bit for the new structure, but no trees will be taken out in that far, I guess, northwest property line. So as I said, that dry pond, it's a tougher site. We cannot and did not want to do just turf down there. It just wouldn't do well. We also wanted to stick to a pretty native palette if we could, and just a palette that we can extend to the rest of the site. So again, we didn't want to conceal the new building, but we wanted to kind of dignify the entrance and the connections north and south.
Next
I don't
slide.
know how we're doing on time.
We're,
Answer any questions.
yeah, less than 30 seconds, so that's perfect.
Okay.
Any questions for Eric or Nate?
This is Erin. I have a quick question. I know both of you mentioned the re-landscaping of the whole campus. Is that something we'll be reviewing in the future, or do we have that in this drawing set? I'm not sure.
No, in this stage, the extent of the project is just the heavy dashed line in this rendering. So it stops roughly at the existing building and then goes to the parking lot.
Go to the next slide, David.
So with this, we wanted to gesture at additional plantings that we feel would kind of enhance the character when you're driving by at 40 to 60 miles an hour. We would like to address the front of the property and tie them in.
But those aren't being proposed at this time, other than just in this rendering. Like, they're not part of the design that we're reviewing.
Correct.
But Aaron, I can tell you it is the owner's intent, just not at this point, to do that, because a lot of these are evergreens that are overgrown and real stocky. And he's committed to doing that. And I think that would be part of our submittal when we come through with the existing building modifications at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Any other additional questions? With none, David, staff comments, please.
Sure. The applicants have satisfied the previous board and staff comments from 12/7/20. The design has evolved and been refined since the last review. The fenestration looks to have been more deeply set for more pronounced shadow lines. The proposed building has its own identity and style, but fits in nicely with the existing building design and feels more unified than the last submittal. The landscape plan has been greatly improved with more layering and a nice selection of plants. The proposed landscape also helps unify the proposed building with the existing building. The applicant states the existing landscape will be updated at a future phase. But with that, staff does recommend preliminary approval.
Thanks, David. Eric or Nate, any responses or comments to David's comments?
No,
Okay.
unless he said something negative that I didn't hear.
Yeah. Now we are in board discussion and or a motion.
David, can we go back to some of the side-by-side drawings of the existing building?
The renderings?
Yes. Right. So on the left, that's the existing building, and on the right or on the middle is the new one, correct?
Yes.
Doesn't it look like the rendering kind of updated the existing building? And I guess my question is, when is that existing building going to get updated next after this new one is done? Did we have a date yet of when that existing building was going to be?
No, no, unfortunately, Kristen, I don't. I would hope that it would be within the next year, but that's a function of, I guess, the market demand. So his objective is to update it, but I can't give you a timeline on that.
Yeah,
Do we have-
and it's not something we can consider in this application either.
Do we have an existing real photo of that building in this proposal?
Yeah, I had it at the beginning here. Let me show you. Here we go.
Thank
Mhm.
That's all.
Any other comments or emotion?
Here's the light.
I didn't get back there to the lights. Where does that light live?
They're all along both facades. Let me show you.
I see them more on the back.
Yeah, can you see them here?
Mhm.
And then also,
There are a couple on the front, but they're within the field of white.
and then
It looks
here
like-
they are in the back. They're above the doors in the back.
And those are exit doors out of the stairwell in the front.
Mhm.
I know I'm
Is
not
that-
supposed to speak.
Is that, Eric, is that the only exterior lights that you have? It kind of looks like it. Reading these plans right. You've got some can lights, it looks like, in the canopy.
Yeah, I mean, we really tried to minimize those for, exit purposes only and put them where we needed them. I can't imagine that we're going to have any overly decorative lights other than what's shown here.
Mhm. Well, I think overall, I think the new building, and I don't know if Michelle's seen this design yet, so I'd love to hear some of her first thoughts, but it's an interesting interpretation of the existing building, and it's a better interpretation. And I think
I agree.
it will blend, given the fact that it's kind of mostly hidden by landscape or big mature trees is too bad, because it's really a nice looking design, but I think it'll be one of those surprises. I do like how it's a black and white building, the existing one is, and it's very dominant horizontal. And I think this new building, be it black and white, is a much more interesting way to look at black and white together. Yeah, I don't have any major comments. I think you touched on it, Eric, the last time we had the conversation. It was heavy on landscape plan.
Can we look at the landscape plan? I don't know where it is in this drawing set, but just for a minute, I'm gonna. Do we have, I think there's like an actual plan though, that's not a rendering. Like that.
Yeah, right there.
Okay, thanks.
So the renderings are great, but we did plant pretty densely, so we won't have gaps, I guess, in the landscape.
So I'm kind of flipping through some of this mechanical plan. You've got some roof fans, I guess, exhaust fans on the roof, littered here and there. If you could provide some more order to them, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
You got one outlier, looks like on the south side.
We did try to keep major mechanical off the roof to minimize it, knowing that how far away you would be viewing the building, that diminishing view from perspective, hopefully you wouldn't see them up there at all.
Mhm.
This is Michelle. If we can go back to like a rendering, David, I do have a few comments. I did miss the first conceptual review of this project. And while I appreciate that initial design for its proportion and scale, I can understand the prior concerns of that design perhaps not being as informed as this one is by the existing white building, stucco, horizontal banded building that's there. And I agree with Jeff. I think that y'all have done a great job to take cues and to reinterpret that white and dark, white and black horizontality into this new building. And I do appreciate the minor details of of looking at the eaves and making these subtle plays with the depth and the reveals. And I think that the change of color will help support that. I've done that in the past, and while it is a very, very subtle move, it's at least something that you can attempt to do to break up and create proportions that break up a long building expanse. And I think that that's successful here. And I think I'm reading that, and you may have touched on this, Eric, but I think I'm reading that the storefront colors also complement the white and the black field. So I think that that is a good device to help support that. I mean, generally, I'm in support of this application.
Is that a motion?
I want to actually, I have a question. I'm curious to get Andy's opinion on this too, with the landscape plan. Because I'm always, in theory, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm a bit concerned when we see these huge plantings of, like, for example, this sedge fern mix. The idea of that is okay, but they always seem to, I don't know, they never seem to work out as well as they do in theory. And a lot of that's a maintenance issue. And I know that maintenance isn't really what we're discussing. But I'd be curious, Andy, your thoughts on that, if we should try to break that up or mix it up a little bit. Especially something like ferns. And I don't know exactly what the species mix is, but they can,
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
Especially with the front, grasses. Yeah, they tend to do a little bit better. Ferns,
Right.
just it like you say, the maintenance just lets it go after a while, and we tend to get a failed landscape. I am a little concerned with that.
And they're very tender plants. Ferns tend
Yes.
to be, I feel like. And with that many, I'm scared of them getting burned up and trampled and weeded out and everything. If I'm reading the plan right, it looks like there's a lot.
So that mix, sorry, am I allowed to speak at this stage?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
sorry.
If we can flip to the plant schedule, though, we can see what that mix is. But I'm thinking it might make sense to either break it into smaller plantings or change the species somewhat. Sensitive fern and creek sedge. It's like 3,800 square feet of that mix. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of aggressive.
What do you think, Andy, would make more sense that I mean, I guess we can just ask them to study it.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the way to go, is that we just feel like that needs to you know, a little bit of it's good. Maybe some different, something to complement it, I guess is where I would look at it.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments or emotion?
I'd like to make a motion for preliminary approval to include the board comment regarding the study of the sedge fern mix and amount of that mix in the landscape. I would also like to include the board comment regarding the existing landscape being updated in a future phase.
What's the comment specifically about that, Michelle?
It says, well,
I don't
it
think
was
we
a-
can really comment on that
Yeah,
for this
I think that's
application, at
really
least.
just a hope.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, I can strike that comment,
okay.
that staff comment, and just include the board comment regarding the sedge fern mix.
Okay. That it?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion for preliminary approval with board comment to study the sedge fern fern mix and the amount of it. Is there a second?
This is Jeff. I'll second.
Okay, I will call roll now. Andy,
Yes, in favor.
Aaron,
Yes, in favor.
Kristen,
Yes, in favor.
and I am also yes in favor. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good.
Thanks, everybody.
See you all next.
Have a good week.
You too.
Any other comments before I say goodbye?
When's the next meeting, David? March, is it on a Monday or is it going to be on a Tuesday?
It's on a Monday, March 1st.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, March 1st. Great, perfect.
Thank you all. See you later.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you
Bye.
all.
Good seeing you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, yeah.